Boom. Here we are. The day before the witching hours. It is Wednesday, October 30th, 2024, and welcome to the weekly live stream on the C47's channel. I'm Jem Schofield, and Thaddeus, good to have you here. It would be great if we just did a quick you can see and hear me clearly type of situation. There have been a couple of technical difficulties I've been having recently with the old setup with all these tests and everything I've been doing. So it'd be good to make sure that there are no dropouts, especially with audio. That's the thing I've been dealing with, but I kind of just rebooted everything, reconnected everything, and I think we're going to be okay. And there's the confirmation. If anybody hears any little glitches, let me know. I may not be able to handle them in real time, but sometimes I'm willing to give it a go. So lots going on here. Lots of prep for some videos I'm going to be doing about various products, primarily from sponsors of the channel. And I'm sort of doing, I'm not going to say a catch up, but it's sort of all coming together at the same time because it's some stuff that I've been going back and forth with the companies on. So companies like AJA, Axoon, Calibrite, Nanlite. So got stuff to do and coordinating with people to get additional pieces or parts or products in to do those videos. I'm going to be doing something on the Alien 300C light. What's up, Colin? And that's a pretty interesting one because it's sort of a new UI from Nanlite, but the thing about that light is it is pretty punchy in a small panel, and it's designed to be used outside, and it's kind of cool. What's happening, Brandon? Good to have you here. I think last week was the week that you were here in spirit, but you were unable to be here for the actual live stream. If I'm correct, they all kind of mush together nowadays. All of these things and episodes and stuff like that. But it's good to see everybody, and let's get some conversation going. For the amazing 6 people that are here right now, I think you know the deal, though I don't. I see 3 of the 6 people have actually already posted comments. But if you want to bring up a topic, it's an @the_C47 before the question. KBH Media, what's up? You're here for the live stream. David Carroll, what's happening? 7 KBH. Come on, 7 of you now. I now have it set up. I never knew I could do this on my Stream Deck. It's always really small in Ecamm Live. You can kind of get there's a place where it tells you how many people are on the stream directly in Ecamm, but it's so far away and it's so small that unless I have it on this monitor or large over here, then I don't know. But I added it. We're in double digits now. We're 11. So I added it to the Stream Deck. I've just created a new kind of setup here that I'm messing with, which I started to go down when I started doing these multiple 4K inputs into my MacBook Pro and all of that kind of stuff. Yes, 7-Eleven, which is closing or did close about 700 stores. They're owned by a Japanese company now, 7-Eleven, which is probably why 7-Eleven is so cool in Japan. But, there you go. What's up, DJ Succotash? Good to have you here. People dip in and then they just disappear. But, for the hardcore people who know what this whole thing is about, sorry, Brandon. You know the story. You have the pulse. Your finger is on the pulse. Is that what they say? Okay. Colin's coming in. Now we're getting a conversation going. There's no trivia and stuff like that, but I do want to say for housekeeping purposes, for anybody that did win something last week from B&H, That stuff has been confirmed to me as being received and will be shipping out. So you should be getting your stuff shortly in terms of that. Colin, so I'm interested. Shame on you, Colin, for not putting in out the C47 before your question or starting this conversation. So I'm interested in building a live streaming road case using an ATEM Extreme and preferring hardware and avoiding software to manage elements of the stream. Okay. I don't have an ATEM Extreme. It's big. Well, not that big. Caleb has built custom little boxes for the ATEM Mini boxes before, which have been very cool. They have built-in monitors and things like that, and they're pretty amazing. I don't know if anybody else is making custom cases, or you're just interested in making your own live streaming road case. So I totally get it. You know, the software component of it. The real problem for me is that with a large percentage of Blackmagic Designs products, you there's an IP address component to it, and I found that for things like their keyers, it can be frustrating because I'm not in a I'm not in a place where I have great internet, and I don't have it set up where I have a network set up in the traditional sense. And I just find that it's, you want a locked in IP address and then things will drop, and I don't know, it's annoying. So I've tried a number of different things, Colin. For me, the most successful way to control the ATEM has actually been essentially using, I guess it's continuity, or it might be just straight mirroring, but it's essentially using an iPad as your controller, using USB-C, not over a network. So I've set it up in here where I can walk over to essentially, Blackmagic software on this computer, but not using a network, and I can switch some things or use the ATEM. But that software UI is on my iPad mini, and then I have it hooked up directly from my MacBook Pro to my iPad mini, and then I basically have that software so I can switch using that. That may not be what you want to do, but I have done that successfully in the past. You said you did a full day live stream using Ecamm going out to Zoom, had Ecamm audio issues. Love to hear about that. I've had a couple of audio issues over the last couple of days, and I'm wondering if it might be because of an Ecamm upgrade, but I'm kind of sensing that it's not. Even in today's episode of the Daily Drop, before I rebooted, reconnected, changed things, I heard a couple of little audio glitches in there. So I don't know. Let me know more about that. Shoji coming in. Can you recommend a rim hair light, preferably from Aperture Amarin, and where would place it? Well, where you would place it is really dependent upon what kind of effect and what you're trying to do with it. In terms of, is it more of a kick light like this, which is sort of just favoring one side of a person, or do you want it to be behind and above the person, so it's more of a backlight that's creating separation on both shoulders? So it just sort of depends. I will make one recommendation for a light like that is not an Aperture or Amarin light, though there are lights from other people like this. But Nanlite makes a specific light called the 60C. I'll go grab it. Hold on. So hopefully you guys will see this. It's not exactly set up for product demonstration. They make this in a B version too, which is bicolor. So you could just get that. This is the color version, which is, to my knowledge, the only light from Nanlite, not Nan Lux, but Nanlite, which which goes up to basically the 720B2. But this is the only light in their portfolio, in their product line, that is RGB ACL. They do make a bicolor, which you could get, which is less expensive, but they make a kit. And the key to the castle here for me is, the light is important, but it's this projector attachment here. This is the M Forza M mount, which is the smaller mount, which you can adapt to Bowens. And basically you have these leaves inside of here. This is essentially like a Source 4 or Leica, and there's lens elements in here. And I have for probably for over a year now, this has been my go-to for a hair light, for a rim light, and things like that. The disadvantage for you, Shoji Productions, is if you have a number of aperture or Amaran lights, you may be in the Sidus ecosystem in terms of stuff. But there are ways to get other lights to work with Sidus Link. So this may be something that you want to look at. But I would be looking for something in that 60 to 120 watt output light that has a projector, because it just gives you a much more precise way of shaping the light. You can cut it to a sliver, you can rotate it, you can sort of just have it hit where you want it to hit on your talent. It's not the only way to do it. You could obviously get a little Fresnel attachment with some barn doors. It's just not going to be as precise in terms of the way you can have that light hit the person. So I hope that makes sense, or the subject matter. What's up, Brad? Good to have you here. DJ says, I would imagine there are a good number of stream management functions you could program into some kind of stream. Yeah, like a Stream Deck device in combination. Yeah, there's some communication solution, Colin, that exists where you can do that. I didn't have great luck with it, but the last time I tried that was a year and a half ago. So yeah. KBH Media says, are you having a drink even though Caleb and Ben aren't here? Probably not today on the live stream. I might when I'm done and I have uploaded the daily drop, because the boy's coming home for dinner tonight. I don't mean he's coming from out of town, but in high school and when you're a senior with all of the sports and other activities and everything else, it's not that he's sitting down at the dinner table every night. He is tonight. So I'm cooking dinner, and I have some nice tri-tip roasts in there, or roast, depending on how much he's going to eat. And yeah, it's going to be good. So maybe I'll have some red wine when I'm doing that. There's my answer to that. Aperture has a similar spotlight tool for their 120-300 fixtures. It's true. So does Nanlite for their bigger fixtures, but that's a big projection attachment. This one is much more manageable in terms of size. I don't know if they make one for their smaller lights, like that 60X that you're mentioning, Colin. But I like these really small projection attachments. I guess you could also look at, who the F did it? I think it's Suray, but it might be a different company, came out with a new projector which has a zoom lens on it, so you can basically change the degree angle. So that could be interesting. I don't know. Yeah, tri-tip. It's a great, and the two that I bought today, they weren't huge. About you can do the conversions if you're kilograms, but it's about 1.5 pounds for one of them, close to 2 pounds for the other one. The one that's about 1.5 pounds, that looks like the winner. The other one looks great. I'm trying to decide how I'm going to cook it tonight. A lot of the time, especially when it starts like it has here, starts being the rainy season, the faucet has been turned on. What I'll do is I'll cast iron pan it. I have a large cast iron pan. I'll do a hard sear on it, and then I'll turn it down and then it's red wine and, butter and all of that stuff. The thing that I did last time, which was actually with a flank steak, is I started in the cast iron with basically caramelizing red onions. So I had red onions caramelizing, and the reason I did this is my son is like his favorite type of potatoes, Barden or mashed potatoes. And what he really wants is he doesn't want a jus, he wants a gravy with the mashed potatoes. So what I did last time that I made steak, um, is basically take those red onions and I basically sweated them out in the cast iron pan, got them really beyond that point where they start to caramelize. And it doesn't take a lot to do that. You just put them in there. You can make a little bit of olive oil if you want. Ideally, you're using beef tallow and you're starting there. I actually have some scraps from some beef that we just broke down. So I'll probably just render that fat out and then I'll cook the onions in that. And then you just get rid of the onions, put them to the side. Then you're going to do a sear on whatever you're going to cook. That could be a ribeye, that could be a tri-tip, that could be a flank steak, whatever it's going to be. And then once you've got that hard sear on both sides, I basically just take a little bit of red wine. You'll take some rosemary, some garlic, the normal, maybe a little bit of butter, but and then just put a lid on it on a very low, and then just bring the meat up to temperature. Let's say 125, 130 degrees, with an instant read thermometer, and then take that out. And then you've got all that delicious stuff in there, and then basically add back in those caramelized onions. And then what I've been doing is taking small boxes of beef bone broth, not beef broth, not beef stock, but bone broth because it has a more intense flavor. And then I'm making a very quick gravy with that. You leave all the rosemary and stuff in there, and then you basically just strain it. If you need to thicken it up a little, you got a couple of different ways you can do that. You can put a little roux in there, or the fast way to do it, especially if you're just trying to get dinner on the table, is just make a cornstarch slurry and then just get that into there just to give it a little bit more body pretty quickly. Yes, your cholesterol's not rising. It's not that much butter, and fat is flavor. I don't know about this new cooking channel. Things are they're in progress here, Brandon. I don't know if it's a cooking channel, but there's some stuff on there. Yeah, so it's kind of like a pseudo braise, DJ. The other thing I was thinking about doing, though I don't think I'll do it today, is just starting in the oven at a very low temperature and just bringing that tri-tip to temperature and then bringing it out and then basically, doing a reverse sear. So doing the sear at the end. The only downside to that way in general, the whole way, is what I love about a Weber or anything that's a charcoal grill is charcoal gives a certain flavor profile to your food that you're not going to get on the stovetop. All right, let's see. What am I missing here? Boom. Got what you're saying. Good. Okay. There is also a spotlight for the 60 series. I'm assuming you're saying, Brad, for the 60 series from Aperture / Amarin. Yeah. So, I mean, that's going to get you pretty much in the same ballpark. Generally, a kicker light isn't going to be as soft, though it can be. But I find that's maybe the only downside to using the projection attachment is it's not inherently a soft light when you're doing it. So sometimes what people will do is, especially with a small light like this one, is you can have the projection attachment, but then you can put if you don't like that, then for the 60 series from Aperture, Amarin, whatever, or from Nanlite, they make small little soft boxes. So you get a little small kind of beauty dish soft box, and you can use that. Or as I said before, most of the manufacturers will make a Fresnel lens, which will let you change the degree angle, and then you'll have barn doors. But Fresnel lights, while softer than the projection attachment, will still be a little bit harder in terms of light quality. There we go. So it looks like we have some ideas for Shoji on that. Let's see what we have. Also, Small Rig just came out with a light recently. Yes, I saw that. Didn't read much about it. I saw it on News Shooter. It's getting ridiculous. I mean, you've got the regular cast of characters that are making lights on a regular basis, and the quantity of fixtures and different configurations and form factors is kind of crazy. And now, especially in the last 12 months, you have a lot of other companies. iFootage, Newer with two E's, Small Rig, Godox historically was in the sort of still photography lighting game. So off camera flash, strobes, things like that. They're definitely making a play at continuous lighting and doing that kind of stuff. So, you know, there's just a lot of options out there. What it does mean for us as consumers, as people who are going to be looking at and purchasing these lights, is that there are a lot of options and there are generally a lot of good deals and promotions that are going on. So, that doesn't mean that they're the lights that you should be getting, but it does mean that there are a lot of available fixtures out there for, yes, some of them a lot of money, but most of them for a very reasonable amount. Um, of course you did. Brandon, one of these days, just send me an email like a couple hours or a couple of days before the live stream. I don't know if I'm going to set up scenes right now with this. You're killing me. But the thing that I do like about you, Brandon, is you're consistent. You are definitely consistent in terms of that. So you get points for that. That's a good thing. You're predictably unpredictable. Um, I'll see. But the problem is then I start getting all of these, you know, little things popping up and sounds are going to start to happen. I'm assuming you can still hear me, even though I'm muting my computer right now because of my input. If for some reason my audio dropped out, you better let me know. Let's see. Ooh, very bright. You're killing me, Brandon. Brad says, I feel like all the LEDs come from one or two factories with people slapping their names on generic fixtures. Only trust the big names for quality and warranty. I would say that that's a pretty sound piece of advice. It may not be true for every single thing, but there's definitely some truth to that. Boom, 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 boom. Looking, scanning. Aha. Ooh, look at all this stuff. Hey now. Ooh, you sent me lots of pictures. I got a lot of available light. I'm just trying to figure out if I grab one of these, which one kind of gives us the this. Let me see what I can do. Hold on. Don't worry, I didn't attach any viruses. That was my first concern, right? It was not. It's okay. Let's see. I'll go to scenes. It's gonna go to a uh I'll create a new scene and I'll come back to here. In fact, hold on. It's gonna go black a couple of times. It's almost gonna be like a boom, boom, boom. And then I'll come back to here and I'll see if I can drag these pictures while I'm still on camera into the other scenes. I don't know if that's going to work. It might let me just drag it in and create. There we go. All right. There's number one. But the problem is it's not showing you the entire image. It's just because of the preference of how Ecamm is set up. So let me just see if I can change that really quickly. I may not be able to in a way that I feel like I want to. It says unlock. There we go. I guess I can do this. Everybody can see this. I'm sure it's like now it's rotating the image. This gives us a pretty good idea. And then we'll take the second one. What'd you get? You got barely used 300X fixtures for $300 each. Yeah, it's a mess in LA right now, just in general. I was actually talking to somebody about that at a meeting yesterday. They're not doing anybody any favors. Let's see. Oh, I see. It's like some new safety feature in Ecamm where it's like I don't know. Don't worry about it. And let's see if we can get another one here. Kind of gives us a 35,000 foot look at the ceiling, I think, once I unlock this thing and I move the image down so we can see what the ceiling looks like. There we go. Looks like you're building out some sort of pipe grid. And then last one coming in, and then I'll be able to move between them. It's a little sloppy here, but you know, why not? For you, Brandon, almost anything. All right. Yeah. All right. So here we go. So we've got sort of this view of the space. Got some ducks and things like that. Not sure what issues, and you can talk about them, you're dealing with, because you've got what, two? Is it two outside walls to the outside world? Wondering how controllable the HVAC system is. Yeah, it looks like you have that kind of brickish wall on the right. It's not true brick, but and then you have the other wall. Lots of windows, which you're obviously going to be controlling. Is that a concrete floor? Are you gonna? There was some discussions there, Brandon, about whether or not you were gonna go with carpet, like a commercial carpet, or not. And then in this picture here, I see there's a door going into, I guess, part of the rest of the office space. And what happens on the other side of that wall and the back wall? Outside is outside, and I'm just kind of want to understand from you how you're thinking about sound proofing, or at least sound deadening that stuff. Behind the wall of trees is our current tiny studio, which will become the control room. A window and a door will be installed. We're currently sorting out the AC. We're going with an LVT. What's an LVT? I don't know why I'm not getting that acronym today. I'm just brain dead. Door leads to hallway. So do you feel like you're going to have pretty good control over that space? And how are you going to handle blacking out the windows? And are you going to create some sort of curtain system around the space so that you can have it on rails so that you can just black out the whole space? Or are you just going to only shoot in certain directions? Because the rail system, you know, with curtains can be very, very handy. And you can basically make it surround the entire room or just two sides or three sides or whatever you want to do. But tell me what the LVT thing is. Coming back to you, Brad. Yeah. You know, I'm going to talk about this for a second because I don't really talk about on the channel. I don't talk about religion. I don't talk about science. I don't talk about politics. But when there's things that happen to an industry like ours in California, a lot of that is coming down to politics. And it doesn't mean that I'm getting into a discussion about whether or not I think California has, you know, a view of things that align or don't align with me. I do know that for the entertainment industry, they're doing no favors to anybody in terms of helping people, in terms of incentives for productions. You know, independent contractors or freelancers are kind of lumped into the same independent contractor freelance bucket that Uber drivers are. They're very different industries. Makes it very difficult for me as a producer to want to do production in California because I have to jump through hoops to even hire people. Because in order to hire people on projects that are not, you know, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, in terms of I'm DeBrown, what's happening, man? You know, that are not of that scale, and even not of the scale of a television show or even a small feature film, an independent. But when we're talking about corporate production and you want to do work in California, it really is not friendly now to the production industry. And Hollywood, I mean, look, California, I've talked about this before. They basically have three main contributors and they're like a country, like 40 million people. They agriculture, you have technology, obviously Silicon Valley and things like that, and you have the entertainment industry. And it really is not good right now in LA and California for the entertainment industry. And Brad, what you're saying is not, a unique or isolated case. It's really hard. It's not like there's a lot of stuff going on in that town. There's seemingly a lot of stuff going on because there's always production going on in Los Angeles, but the reality is compared to, what it could be, it's becoming more and more attractive for productions to go outside of the state of California to do their their films, television shows, and to a certain degree, even just a corporate gig, you know. Um, so it is very, very frustrating because in order for me to, let's just say, hire a crew of 5 people for a production, I either have to kind of structure it like a complete company where it's going through payroll and this and that, and it's a lot of other stuff, um, which takes it away from the realities of an independent contractor being able to take on a job, because now they're in a payroll scenario. They've got taxes being taken out instead of what they would normally do, which is get paid and then handle that themselves, get a 1099 in this country, so on and so forth. Um, yeah. So Uh, still not loving your vinyl tile situation, Brandon, from a sound standpoint, but it depends what you're going to do. I'm just saying it out loud. And then also, I would consider some sort of curtain situation for the space, because full blackout doesn't mean that you can shoot in that direction. It just means that you're not getting any light coming in through those windows. So if you want to maximize the usage of that rectangular space, my recommendation would be to start looking at ways to have backdrops. I mean, you can buy these multi-rail systems, 2 or 3 rails, or even on just one rail, especially if you're only doing 3 walls. You can have different curtains that are on there. One might be black, one might be white, one might be green, one might be gray. You get the idea. Yes, those greedy people, I'm the Brown. It's a mess. So doing production outside of California is becoming more and more attractive and more cost effective. So it's no surprise that we're seeing growth in areas like Atlanta, Georgia. We're seeing growth in places like Albuquerque, New Mexico. Um, and of course, people are going overseas and up north to Canada for production as well. So, yeah, you're welcome, son. Uh, if you're going to build out a studio space, my feeling is try to build it out in a way that it has and gives you the most number of options in terms of how you can use that space. And it's going to be a relatively low cost purchase to put those into place. You could also set up on one wall, some sort of seamless type of situation where you have different backdrops that come down for certain things. But look at Delta, Delta, on B&H's website. They make a number of options that are related to installing and having a rail system around the perimeter of your studio space, which will give you, in my opinion, many more options in terms of what you can do with that space. Uh, you know, and I won't say anything about the vinyl tiles anymore. Not saying that you should have a neutral gray, very low pile commercial carpet in the space. I didn't say that. I have concrete in here, but I do have rugs in the space, and it's very well insulated. So, yeah. Would you see that's the same for talent? We are seeing way more British and other Europeans acting as North American characters. Maybe. I don't, there may be some connection to that. I don't know, Tony, like 100%. The problem is that, um, it's all connected to each other. I was going to say something else, and I was like, it was a stupid word to use. It's all connected. So it's sort of like the strikes, right? If you have actors who are striking, there's no work for people behind the camera because they're not going to get in front of the camera. But I think that the problem that's happening in California and in Los Angeles in particular is the state itself is really not making it easy to do production in that state and in that city. And they're not pushing incentives. They're not encouraging productions to stay in California. Why, I have no idea, but it's pretty bad. Exactly. Uh, the DC character, the question. It is all connected somehow or some way. It is all connected. All right, man. These things fly when we're kind of talking about stuff. We're already getting close to 3:40 over here. Hold on. Hopefully that muted for a second. Almost done with all of this stuff, but man, it has lingered. Stupid head cold. All right. So, what are we going to talk about next? Or what are we going to continue to talk about? I don't think there's been a lot of big announcements that have happened in the last 6 to 7 days. Let me just see. Let's see what the old Matt Allard and Eric Naso site says here. Good old news shooter. Sennheiser has just come out with a new wireless 2.4 gigahertz all-in-one audio system. Kind of has some Rode vibes, but a little different. There's that Godox Stormtrooper 200R light. We've got new monitors I was reading about from Portkeys, which look pretty interesting. They look pretty robust for their price, and one of them has wireless capabilities, which look pretty interesting. I guess it's pretty big news. I mean, Nikon just released, or Nikon, the Nikkor Z or Z 28 to 135 f4. So we've seen lenses like this from companies like Sony. So, they're making a play there. Canon, and I knew about this, but Canon has released 4 new lenses. I think it's a 35, a 50, and a 70 to 200. These are all now part of that family where they have the 24 to 105 hybrid lens, and so they're kind of building out this whole hybrid lens thing, which are obviously targeted largely to people who are capturing, you know, moving images or video, but the whole point is that they are hybrid, so they're designed to be flexible for both still photography and for motion capture. New carbon fiber tripod kit from Small Rig. Interesting. Maybe not, but maybe. There's a Small Rig 220B, and then yeah, I think that's it. Those are the main things that I'm seeing here that might be of interest. Nothing earth-shattering, but those Portkey monitors with the new OS that they've designed look pretty good. Yeah, those Enso lenses from Ari, but not that I wouldn't want them. Brad, this gimbal, the Insta360 Flow Pro. Yeah, I was thinking about maybe even doing an episode on this. I have the Tascam here, which is an interesting little box, the FR AV2, which I like. The problem is I'm a little spoiled, and I'm spoiled at a very different price point, but I have a Mix Pre 6.2, and the noise assist feature on that device is so damn good. And I found that the sort of low, medium, and high settings of a similar feature in here are not so good. And I wasn't getting great results from that in comparison to what I get with my Mix Pre 6.2. Now, for somebody who doesn't have a device like this, which does 32-bit float, has two XLR, well, really combo ports here, which will do quarter-inch or XLR balanced. This could be a great little solution. You know, it's I think $3.99 US, but it's just not the right product for me. And this is a long way of answering your question, Brad. I wasn't that impressed with the Flow Pro. I thought that the auto tracking feature, the way you can use just the regular camera app on your iPhone, was great, but it's very jerky and it doesn't look like you have a lot of finesse when you're using it, at least that way. Um, it's just not doing something for me that I wanted it to do. And I find that the stabilization features now on smartphones are getting so good that that when I want to move a camera a certain way, this is the most natural way for me to move a camera if I'm hand holding it. And a gimbal, it just gets clunky sometimes. I am very interested in using something like the RS4 from DJI along with the new slider that iFootage is coming out with, which is the Mark II, which is their Shark Nano number 2. And that looks like a really interesting combination of using a gimbal on a slider so that you can really get multiple axes out of it. So I'm hoping to do some stuff related to that in the near future once I can get my hands on that iFootage Shark Nano 2, because I really liked the first version of that slider. Yeah, and the RS4 I guess did come out last year, but it's the small. I think it's one of the smallest versions of their gimbals that you can use with the iFootage Nano 2. I didn't need anything large because I might put an FX30 on it or a smaller mirrorless camera. Shoji, what are the Bowens mount hyper reflectors that come with many COB lights used for? A hyper reflector basically is taking your beam angle without the reflector, and it is effectively making it very narrow. So what you're doing is you are taking the output of that light and you are effectively intensifying it into a particular beam angle. And what that means is for the direction that that reflector is pushing that into, um, you know, into a whatever, a modifier, a wall, whatever it's going to have higher output within that smaller space. Let me just see if I have something. So you can see here that different reflectors will have different beam angles, and they'll even have a different sort of pattern inside of them in terms of focusing that light to be a little bit more direct or a little bit more spread out. Obviously, without a reflector is one of the most the broadest beam that you're probably going to get, unless you have something like a dome diffuser on there. Yeah. Okay, so I think that is up to date. I think I've answered all these questions. I don't know. Yeah, I have. I've answered the questions. Who's buying an Enso set of lights? I don't know. All right, so Brad says Gaffer and Gear has some great reviews breaking down hyper reflectors and their benefits, hindrances, applications. And I think I'm defining that correctly. I may not be, but I think I am if I'm understanding what the question is in terms of hyper reflectors. And if I'm not answering that correctly, then I'm definitely in brain fart territory. And keep me in my place. That's what I want to know. Am I crazy? Yes, but am I remembering things properly? That I want to know of. Okay. We got about 15 minutes. And by the way, somebody mentioned or asked a question about me having a drink today without Caleb and Ben. Guess what? It's going to happen next Wednesday, which is November 6th. I don't even need to look at that because Election Day is November 5th. Next Wednesday, November 6th at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, we are going to be doing, thankfully, it's about time, a new episode of Camera Flask. So I've confirmed with Caleb and Ben that they are both available. So it will be the way it should be, which is on the first Wednesday of the month. Sometimes that cannot happen. And of course, in the month of October, because of my shenanigans of going overseas and doing that work wedding trip, it didn't happen. So it'll be a good month and a half plus since we did the last episode. I can't remember in September what week we did it. I don't think it was the first week of September. So from that, there you go. No, I know, Brad. He was asking what they're used for. I'm just hoping that what I said about them made sense. Well, I mean, shoji, that's it's kind of like the question about the back or kicker light. How you use something is definitely not a paint by numbers in what we do. But effectively, if you need a harder light source that is being directed at a very specific place, then a reflector like that might be able to help and also increase the amount of light intensity that's going there. So you're essentially increasing how much light is reaching a particular place. There's a lot of different ways to get light from one place to another. A lot of people will use Fresnel lenses, and a lot of those Fresnel lenses can be focused to a broader or a tighter beam angle and will give you similar types of results to a degree. But because of those concentric circles of the Fresnel lens, it's going to be generally a much smoother sort of fall off from that beam of light that's going somewhere. So it really depends. I wouldn't necessarily get caught up on, a particular application for a modifier or a product. It's more about, does that particular accessory have a use for what you're trying to achieve from a lighting standpoint? And, I hope that makes sense. I think it does. All right, you're showing your age again. I'm DeBrown, and I'm tracking with you 1,000,000%. Who would I want to hang out with more, Dr. Bombay or Bones? That's a tough question. Yeah, it's just some leftovers. It's really not that bad at this point. It's not killing me over here. Dr. Bombay. I kind of feel like if you went out with Dr. Bombay from Bewitched, you would have either a memorable night or a night that you wouldn't remember. Whereas Bones, I feel like you'd be in the trenches together and there'd be stories to tell, but you'd be doing it together. Dr. Bombay would sort of like, he would guide the experience, wouldn't necessarily participate, by the way, might, depending on what it was. It's insane. All right, so that's my feeling. So I guess it depends what kind of experience I want with the lingering cold. Do I want to go hang with Bones? Probably. Or just give myself up to Dr. Bombay and Dr. I kind of feel like there's debauchery with Dr. Bombay. And now I'm talking to people, they're probably dropping off like flies because they have no reference point to either of these two things. Maybe Star Trek. So I'm digressing, and I don't think I should because it's probably not good for the live stream. All right, what do we got? We got about 10 minutes left, and I need a couple of good questions or somebody to bring something up. Don't really care what it's about. Ideally about production and what we do for a living. But if you want to get back to some food talk, I'm happy to do it. If that's where we I was gonna say people like Brandon might be in the dark. The fact that you stuck around is admirable. Um, just there's this thing called YouTube, and just type in Dr. Bombay Bewitched, you'll get an idea. And then Bones, good old Bones from Star Trek. Um, you know, that's like a drinking buddy. That's what you do with Bones. And I kind of feel like Bones is, probably not a good thing, but I think that Bones is a functioning alcoholic, is kind of my sense. And so, do you want to go under? Thank God the technology for medicine is far more advanced in Star Trek's universe than it is here. So, he could probably just walk into the operating table and take a device and just sort of like put it over the area and cure the person. I don't know. All right. Now we have 9 minutes or 8 minutes left. What do we got? Let's get at least one more thing going here in terms of a question or a topic or something that we want to discuss. As soon as this is over, I'm going to finish editing and getting tomorrow's episode up. I'm starting to do some tabletop stuff over here. It's really baby steps at the moment in terms of what I'm doing, but it's just sort of a little behind the scenes thing. And I still think that the audio might be a little bit funky. I got a few more tests to do here with the whole Camlink 4K and going into Ecamm Live. It's been working swimmingly, but yesterday I ran into some issues, and I thought most of it had to do with bandwidth and downloading a whole bunch of large files from Dropbox from a client. I don't know if that's the case. And neutral gray, 18% gray, Brandon. That's the best color to paint those walls, in my opinion. Ceiling, if you're not going to paint it black, then do a neutral gray. It's the safe way to go because you're not going to get a color cast. And then white is a nightmare. I mean, it's part of the reason why you think about having seamless on one wall, maybe that back wall opposite the big wall of windows on the narrow side, so that you can actually just have different colored backdrops come down. But flat black is good for the ceiling. The only issue you'll run into with that, and sometimes that's why a gray might be an advantage, is you're going to get no light virtually bouncing off of that ceiling. So when you're in certain situations and you're lighting certain things, it's basically, a black hole up there. So what happens is very oftentimes, I mean, if I'm not using a large softbox like this and I was side lighting myself, you would see this strip because I'm bald because of that really dark ceiling. If that was a white ceiling, I get some bounce back. But middle gray is sort of that in between. And what you can do, you don't have to get one of these, but what you can do is you can essentially buy like a Delta or a Kodak or some sort of 8x10 middle gray card, Brandon. This is Dad speaking again. And you can take that to a Sherman-Williams. You can take that to a Benjamin Moore. You can take that to a Lowe's or to a Home Depot, and you can basically use that as your swatch for the color that you are trying to paint the space. Definitely don't go with an eggshell or a semi-gloss on anything. There is sort of a matte finish that you can pay for that's a premium paint that is much easier to clean. It has cleaning capabilities, so you will want to look into that. And I would say that premium paint is this is a working space, right? You consider this a studio space. You're going to need to use good quality product if you want that space to work day in and day out, and make sure that it's that premium matte or flat that is washable. Talk to your your paint consultants. Um, and that's why it's usually good to go to like a Sherman-Williams or a Roto, I think it's called, or a Benjamin Moore store, because you generally will find people there that really know their stuff when it comes to paint. And oftentimes when you're going to a big box Home Depot or a Lowe's here in the US, or in Canada, the people who are there, it's like a hit or miss, right? It's sort of like you might get somebody who was a career painter who's doing this as sort of like a semi-retirement thing and they really know their stuff, but oftentimes it's somebody who doesn't really know much about painting or paint and what the best product is to use for your particular application. They're good at matching a paint color and mixing that, and and doing that and telling you where things are in the department, but they're not necessarily going to be a consultant in terms of the best product for what you're trying to do. And when you're doing that, Brandon, sometimes you're paying an extra $10 to $20 a gallon, but that's a good investment because the product probably is easier to maintain, and B, usually the premium paints go on a lot better. And you'll just have to decide, are you going to do, like a base like primer coat, or are you just going to do that? And here's another little trick. When you're doing a primer, have them tint it to a similar color to what your final paint's going to be. You can absolutely do that. So a primer does not have to be white. You can have them tint the primer to a neutral gray, a middle gray, 18% gray, and then you can use that and then go over with your premium product. So there's a lot of different ways you can do that. Yep. Yep. Uh, yep. Okay. I was just reading your comment over there, Brad. Yeah, Siri did goof that a bit, but I got the gist. Harrison says always Prime, and he's not referring to Amazon when he says that, but tint your Prime. Tint your Prime, Brandon. All right. Tips to get talent to talk on cue. Example, corporate commercial and talent talks too soon or too late. As a director, what you can do, depending on if you can hear your director's voice on camera for certain things, is you can verbally just cue talent. You can basically say, action, or you can basically call action on different things within a scene. So, you can say, you know, uh, Brad, and then you can say Tony, and then you can say, or action Tony, or, you know, um, something like that. If you can't verbalize that on a set, because you'll see a lot of directors, I mean, I don't do a lot of narrative stuff, but there can be call outs within the scene once you say and call action, where there's certain things that are, cue, blah, blah, action, this, let's have this happen. And basically you're calling that out. But if you can't do that, you're just going to have to rehearse a little bit, to make sure that they're hitting their lines where you want them to hit, I guess. That, or I guess you could get him one of those collars that they have for dogs, and you can zap them. I'm just kidding. All right, we're winding down here. Anything else? I don't know if that answered your question. I don't know if that answered your question, Tony, but I hope it did. All right. Well, we stayed above double digits. It's still pathetic. We got to get into like the 40 or 50 to 100 people. Then things start to cook. Then I'm like on my toes trying to figure it out. Sounds to me like that's talent not comfortable with the script or each other needing. It answered well. Okay, thanks. Remember to tint your primers and take your aspirin. Unbelievable. I don't take aspirin, but been known to take some Tylenol or Advil at times when necessary, but until my doctor tells me otherwise. The numbers are going up right at the end of the show. It's 4:00. Kids, we did it. We even got some of Mr. Brandon's images up there. I hope you're staying cool down in that crazy place called Arizona. And everybody else, I hope you're all doing well. I'm going to reset now and get this episode done and then go in there and do my stuff. Yep. Yeah. Those ones are tricky, the unpaid work ones. They tend to be the ones that are the most amount of work. And it's a beautiful 78. It's a good thing, Brandon. All right, everybody, I appreciate it. Don't forget next week, Camera Flask, Wednesday, 3 p.m. Pacific. Hope to see most or all of you there. Bring more people, and as I said earlier, the prizes from October are being sent out by B&H, so thanks to them. And I'll keep you up to date on my whole process here when it comes to setting up for this tabletop stuff and things like that and what I'm working on. Sounds like nice weather down there in Florida overall. And out there in the Pacific Northwest in Oregon, it's messy. The faucet has opened and we got to go with it. I agree, DJ. Bring your friends, all of your friends. Then they'll show up and they'll be like, why the hell did you bring me here? But it's okay. All right, everybody. Take care. All the best.